Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Oh, and of course, I didn't turn the volume down. What else would be new in my world? Just give it a second, and then we'll get rolling here. So I hope everybody is having a good Thursday. It's beautiful here again today, which makes it nice. Also, it's supposed to stay like this, so that's pretty sweet, actually. So, those of you that joined me Tuesday may or may not know that I recorded that mess that I did on Tuesday. So you will find that under my videos. It may not be under, it won't be under the lives in my YouTube channel. It'll be under the videos. So part 1, you got to look under the videos for it. Okay, part 2 should show up in the live. So let's get started. I'm going to pull in. I'm not going to do the walkthrough of this because I've already done it. So look at the walkthrough. If this is, you've just found this and think that this is something you want to create or recreate, just go and look for the walkthrough. All right, so here is a much better looking album, 3-inch spine, which is a much better size as far as I'm concerned. And my pages lay flat and they're straight. I think it was when I looked at it after we were all done and I went, these pages aren't straight. They were wonky. Remember I said as I was doing it, it didn't seem to be straight. And I kept saying, oh, we can fix that. We can fix it. Well, when I flipped them this way, they were way off. And I went, I can't continue with this project the way it is. So this is why you have to look in 2 places now. So let's get ourselves started. And we'll see how far we get. I'm probably going to say we'll do about an hour and 15 minutes. We'll just see how we're rolling, and then we'll go from there. So what we created last time was the cover, the hinges, and we added the pages. So now we're going to start on the flips and the flaps. And in this particular album, I'm going to start on the front inside cover. And before I get rolling too far, I just want to get my magnets out because I know we're going to need magnets. I actually am using the large magnets by Basic Gray that Tammy sells in the shop, in the store online. And if you're new to that, just a shout out, it's countrycraftcreations.com is your store. That's where you'll find this beautiful artisan paper. That's where you'll find the Carta Bella Little Boy collection. And I already went through what was in that collection, so I don't think I need to do it again. And in the original, I used the white artisan. This one, I'm using the natural artisan. So that's why it's just slightly different color. So for the front inside cover, so this part here, we have some pieces we need to cut. And remember, you're always wiser to listen to what I'm doing, watch what I'm doing, and then go back and do your cutting, because I'm notorious for making, as I call them, my oopses. All right, so to start with, we need to make ourselves a pocket for that inside front cover. And that inside front cover pocket, let's get our scoreboard up here too. We'll do all this measuring on the scoreboard, so that'll make it easier. I wonder why we got such this glare, because we didn't have this glare. I wonder if that helps. Well, that's a bit better. All right, maybe I don't need so much light in the summertime. Okay, let's keep rolling. So I want you to cut a piece of cardstock that measures 4, 5, 7, and 3/8. So the 3/8 mark is just past the quarter, or between the quarter and a half. And the reason you're cutting it back, because you're going to say, but Bonnie, It's 6.5, so wouldn't we need a 7.5-inch pocket? I like to cut my pockets back just so they're not going to interfere with the closing of the book. So when I close the book, I don't want it to be getting caught in there. So that's why I usually cut them back that 1/8 of an inch. Hello, Heather. Glad you could join us. So that is the measurement for this pocket. On the 4-inch side, you are going to score at 1/2. Then you're going to turn it to the 7 3/8 side, score at 1/2, turn it completely around again, and score at 1/2. So we're going to do all the cutting and scoring first, and then we're going to work on the pieces. Now, you also need a small booklet, or that's what this is going to end up being, that measures 4 by 12, and on the 12-inch side, so with the 12-inch side along the top of your scoreboard, score it at 6. So that's 2. And then we're putting a bigger booklet into this particular project, and it measures 7 by 10, and I'm scoring it at 5. All right, so let's move this out of our way, and let's burnish on those score lines. So we'll start with the one that's closest to me. And I do like to always make sure that my booklets are nice and straight at their outside edge. Because, you know, sometimes when we score, there's 1. And here's 2. Now remember, just because I'm doing a live, you can really help me if you'll go to my YouTube channel, which is All Things Paper by Bonnie, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I would appreciate it. And it just gets me out there in the world a little bit more. So I'm scoring on all of those. I'm folding on all of those score lines. Now we're going to cut right through the X. So what I mean is where the 2 score lines intersected, this is the pocket, we are going to cut through that X. So there's 1. Now remember, don't cut too high or you're going to end up with a hole in the bottom of your pocket. How do I know that? I've done it in the past. And I also like to miter the top of my 1/2-inch tab on both sides, and I'll show you what it looks like here once I clean up my mess. All right, so when your pocket is done, you're done your cutting, you'll see you have your 2 1/2-inch tabs. You've cut them, you've mitered them, and then this is where I cut out the bottom, and it's just to take away the bulk. Hello, Miss Tammy. We'll see how I do today. And I always like to burnish my pockets again after I've done my cutting because it just gets them nice and crisp again. And we're going to bring the booklet back in. And we're going to start with the pocket. And I also, when I glue my pockets into my book, I also like to just glue the bottom of my pocket first. Hello, Sue. And then I'll glue the sides down. So I haven't been into my glue for a couple of days here because I've been busy doing other things. So let's just see if it's going to cooperate on the first, and it is, which is nice. So again, remember, I tend to be a little bit overzealous with my gluing. I try not to. So we're just going to glue the bottom of the pocket to the inside. Don't want it hanging over the edge. I'm going to open this up. I'm going to take my burnishing tool and I'm going to give it a nice little burnish. And then those of you that watch me enough know I like to put some tape along the bottom over that. I'll leave it over here. Oh, let's put part 2 on here so at least it's saying the right part. Right? Bet it won't let me go back and change that now. Of course not. Oh well. But I should be able to go back and change that. Let me see. Exit full screen. Right here, I bet I can edit it. Give me 1 second. Yes. Let's just get rid of the 1 and throw a 2 in there. All right, that's much better now. So I'm just putting that tape. And why I do this is because then when you put your booklets in your pocket, they don't catch on the little lip of the 1/2 inch tab. And sometimes when I forget to add the tape to a pocket, it irritates me so much. So I don't know quite where I learned this, but someplace along my crafting journey, I know I saw somebody do it and I went, oh, that is a really good idea. So no, it is not something I thought up. It is something that somebody else did. Sorry, I can't give you credit because I don't remember. So now I'm gluing down the sides of the pocket. There we go. And then our booklets. Hello, Caroline. How are you today? And if you want to, I always like to round my corners, and I'm using the 7mm rounding punch here. This is a 3-in-1. It's got a 7mm, a 4, and a 10. I know Tammy used to sell these. I just don't think we have any in stock right now. But I'm sure they will come back into stock at some point. Actually, I went for a walk today, Caroline. I thought, well, let's see how it's going to work out if I go for a walk and then I do a live. Oh, you got to challenge it, right? So far, so good. So those of you that don't know me, I stand while I craft. I've never sat and crafted, or very rarely sit and craft. So that's why my niece sometimes tuckers out, because it's new. All right, so now we're going to move on to the front of page 1. Now, another little hint that I can give you is sometimes, depending on what I'm creating, I start writing on my pages. And what that does for me, it just keeps me on track. And it keeps me from maybe forgetting a magnet or some other crazy little thing like that. Not that I would ever forget a magnet. So I often talk about them like this. So this is page 1, front, page 1, back, page 2, front, page 2. You see where I'm going with this? So just let me finish off here. And if you do it in pencil, you can erase it if it just happens to be in the wrong spot, but it shouldn't be. Back, page 4, front, page 4, back. So I just find it's handy, just helps, like I say, keep me on track. Hello, Lillian. Glad you could join me. All right, so we're going to work on page 1 front, and we need some pieces for page 1 front. So let me get them. Now we'll bring the actual album back in. And then you might get to the point where you like to do all your cutting ahead of time. So if you just write page 1 front, and see, I got a little note here that says I need a magnet on this page, on this these flaps. So that helps me remember, hopefully. We're going to hope. All right, so here is what we need. We need, let me get the tool back in. We need 1 piece of cardstock cut at 5. By 8. And on the 5-inch side, we are going to score at 1/2. Then we have a second flap that we are going to cut at 4 by 8. And on the 4-inch side, we are going to score it 1/2. So when I say 4-inch side, or put your 4-inch side across the top or across the top of the scoreboard, that's what I'm talking about, so that you're scoring at 1/2. And then we have a closure flap, is what I'm calling this. It's 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. And I'll show you where that goes in a couple of minutes. All right, so let's fold on these score lines. I'm just going to leave my note here so I remember magnet. Maybe I'll do this. I'll put it on the front of the page. Hello, Brian. Nice you could join us. And we're going to fold on the other score line. Now, when I am adding flaps to my album page, I never round the corner till after I have my flaps on. And the reason for that is I find it's easier lining things up. So I'm going to bring the book, the finished book, back in here just so you can kind of see where we're going. So this is the closure flap, and it has a magnet right here. So that smaller flap, this flap, it's going to be on this side. Of course, it's going to adhere to the base page. And then the larger flap is going to be over here on the left-hand side. Okay, so it's 2 flaps and then this little closure flap. And I'm going to explain how we're going to do it, but of course, we're not going to adhere this permanently to these 2 flaps because we need to put the pattern paper on this page, and I don't know what that pattern paper is going to be right now. All right, so let's just bring in our booklet. Like usual, I got a million things going on. So the only thing you have to be careful of, couple of things. You want to make sure when you're putting the larger flap, so that flap that was 5 inches wide is going on the left-hand side. You want to look at a couple of things. You want to dry fit first, and you want to make sure that top to bottom, I think I can get a black piece of paper today and work with that underneath what's going on here, because I think it's going to make it easier for us. Yes, it will. So just think of this as the white piece of paper. I'm going to try not to glue on this because this is a piece of my artisan. And I'm running low on artisans, so I have to be very mindful of what I'm doing with it. You know what I'm going to do? Not use a piece of black. I'm going to use a piece of this sort of taupe colored paper that I have. All right. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that top to bottom, this flap is not hanging over the base page. And the other thing we want to just make sure is that it's straight. You might want to pull it back from the edge of the page just a little bit so that when you turn the page, it's not going to interfere with the turning mechanism. So we're going to miter the 1/2 inch tab because this particular flap goes from the top of the page to the bottom of the page. That's usually my rule of thumb about mitering. If what I'm gluing to the base page is going to go from the top to the bottom or from side to side, I tend to miter. If it's not, then I don't. But if it's easier for you to always miter, do that. All right, so let's add this. And that again is the nice thing about the glue. It kind of gives you a second, so I'm just gently, and then I want to turn everything and make sure. I think I'm just going to move it just a touch because it was just barely catching. Okay, now I'm going to be happy. All right. Yes. So there is the flap that goes, so that 5x8 flap goes on the left-hand side. So let's burnish it now. And let's give it a good burnish on the outside. And then we want to add our other flap. And that is the one that goes on the right-hand side of the base page. So that was the flap that was 4x8. And again, we're just going to dry fit. And yes, I'm going to be happy. And we're going to add, oh, miter first. By the time we're done, I'm going to have little bits of mitering everywhere. So anybody got plans for their weekend that's going to start tomorrow? Okay. I'm hoping to get some more crafting done. That's what I'm hoping for. We'll see. It's going to be pretty hard to stay inside when it's as beautiful as it is outside, because we're not hot yet, which is nice. Okay. You don't want it to be over the edge of the base page, but you do want it to go right up, you know, to that edge. Okay, and let's burnish. There we go. And then we're just going to round our corners, and I'm still using the 7mm. And we'll do the other one. All right. So that is there's the two flaps. And then this is the mechanism that's going to hold everything closed. Like so. Now, as I said, you're not going to adhere this permanently to this flap that's on the right-hand side. I'm going to round the corners of it. And what I'm going to do is I am going to add my magnets. So I'm going to use both, adhere one magnet and leave the other one floating. I'll show you what I mean here in a second. All right. Yes. So I'm just going to see. So I have this flap open, this flap closed, and I'm just going to kind of guess where it's going to go. It's going to be someplace right here because that's about the middle of the page. And I'm just going to separate them for a second. Doesn't matter which one I use because this is the first magnet going into my project. I worry more about the magnets and their placement. Something like that, I'm going to say. And I do tend to add a little tape over my magnets. Again, it's another thing. Don't know where I learned it, but it's what I do. Now, I am just going to leave this magnet like that. But when I come back to this whole job of adding it, that's when I'm going to be more particular about things. I am going to put my pattern paper on here. Then I'm going to adhere only half of this flap. And if you notice in my finished project, what I did is before I even adhered this flap to my project, I kind of went in, I'll just give you a ballpark measurement, about 2 inches. So I cut a piece of pattern paper. This was the solids, about a 2-inch piece. And after I have my magnet on here, that's when I added that 2-inch piece. Then I adhered it. Okay. And because you've got the magnet, if you keep the magnet in the center of this piece, it will catch on the magnet that's here, and I just realized the magnet is on the outside. So we're going to change that magnet so that it's going to make sense. So I happen to put the magnet on the inside of my project. And then looking at it, I went, oh no, you probably didn't put it on the inside because it's a lot of layers to go through. So we're just going to move our magnet like so. Okay. And then that's going to make it easier when you come back to do this. So all we're going to do for now, so we don't lose this piece, is I'm just going to run some repositionable tape. And I'm just going to sort of line it up. I am not going to attach this magnet over here yet because, of course, it's all going to hinge on how it's going to line up when you get down to that section, okay? So I hope that kind of makes sense of how we're going to leave page 1 front. Hello, Liz. So let's move on to page 1 back. And page 1 back has this wonderful pocket, so it's a really simple page. Another thing I try not to do is so if I have a magnet on the front of a page, I try not to put a magnet on the back of the page. Sometimes I do, but very rarely, because then you're not fighting with them. You don't have this magnet trying to pull on the magnet that's over here. And yes, you can strategically place them so that doesn't happen too. But magnets are expensive. You can't have them on every page. At least I don't think. I don't. All right, so let's get our pieces for the back of page 1. Let's clear up my space just a little bit since it's already getting a disaster zone. What else is new? All right, we're just going to move this stuff out of the way. Bring the old scoreboard back up. This is more for your visual because I have already scored all of my pieces, but it's just more to remind myself to tell you you need to score. So it's another pocket. So we know how to make pockets. This pocket is 4 by 7, and we should be okay. But if you're afraid that you might have a pocket that's going to hang over the page, just cut it back like a 1/16. So a 1/16 is just a little tick before the 7, or just push it back and shave off a sliver. And then, of course, we're going to do our scoring. So on the 4-inch side, we're going to score at 1/2. Then we're going to turn it to that 7-inch side, score at 1/2. Rotate it to the other side. So I've turned it completely around to score at 1/2. So it's still got 7 across the top. And then, of course, I'm on a booklet kick these days. So my booklet measures 7 by 10, and I scored at 5. And one of the reasons why I like the booklet, it's a lot of real estate, and you're not using a lot of pattern paper because you can just put pattern paper on the front of your booklet and call it good. Now, you can cover it all if you want to. That's your choice. But I go, there's going to be pictures. So do you want to cover it all? Again, like I say, that's your choice. So I'm folding the booklet first. Hello, Miss Pamela. I know when I do it at, what time is it? When I do it at 8 o'clock your time, you get to join me for a little bit. All right, so there's our pocket. And again, it's just the same as the first pocket we did. We miter the 1/2-inch tabs at the top of the pocket. We're going to cut through at the bottom of the pocket right through the X. And again, that's just to get rid of some of the bulk so everything folds nicely. Like I said before, I like to burnish my pockets a second time. And hopefully my pocket's going to fit. Hello, Tina. I know I have some friends over on YouTube, but they're not saying anything. So that's hello to my YouTube world. So I am going to turn it just to make sure, and I'm going to be happy. And what I was doing again was I was making sure that when I turn my page, my pocket is not interfering with the page as it turns. Okay, so let's add some adhesive. We're doing this the same as we did the pocket on the inside front cover. You guys that follow me know I like less is more. That's my style. Just making sure I'm not overhanging. And I'm not. Now, before I'm completely, yeah, I'm going to be fine. So again, burnish the bottom of the pocket. Add some tape. And again, it's just so. They are paying attention. Yes, well, like I said at the beginning of this tutorial, you're probably better off to watch and then do because, yes, because it's probably your safest bet when it comes to me. You know, they're live. Anything can happen. All right, so let's pull this up. So I added adhesive to the 2 1/2-inch tabs on the left and right hand side of the pocket. And now I'm going to burnish and burnish. Give it a good burnish. And we're going to round the corners on the booklet. Just going to move this for a second because as I picked up the booklet, I felt that where I cut it, there's a little bit of a, I don't know what to call them. It's like there's a little burr sometimes on the edge of the paper from the trimmer, from the cutter. And you just need to take your burnishing tool and flatten it out. Probably bugs me the more than it bugs anybody else. So let's round the corners on this booklet. I just find that when I round the corners, it just kind of softens it. Doesn't look so, I don't know, straight, stark. All right, booklet in the pocket. And there is page 1 back completed. Now let's move on to page 2 front. And on page 2 front, I created this little mechanism here. Now, again, we aren't going to want to glue this little booklet or this little closure on until after you put the pattern paper on this flap that goes on the left-hand side. And there is a magnet that is holding all of this shut. I'm going to find where my other half of that magnet is. It is over here. Right here is where that other magnet is. So we're going to do something similar like we did on this page where we're not going to glue down this booklet permanently. We're just going to put it in place. And then after you've made your decision on your pattern paper, then you can go back and adhere this booklet after this pattern paper. And you know what? You might want to make a note of that. All right. So let's get out the things for page 2 front. And let's pull out 2 more magnets. So we have them. Just going to do that because I still have to give you the measurements. So we're going to have to move things again. So those of you that know me know I work in a very small space. Thanks, Alice. How are you tonight? Thanks, Jen. Well, so far I'm batting 100%. We'll see if that keeps up, okay? All right, so let's get rid of that little Post-it note. So we've got a few things we need. So we need that flap that's going to go on the left side of that page. It measures 5 by 8. And on the 5-inch side, you are going to score at 1/2. So with a 5-inch across the top, you are going to score at 1/2. Then the flap that's on the right-hand side, which is the smaller flap, it measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And with the 4 1/4 across the top of your scoreboard, well, actually, with this scoreboard, it's the side, but it's the top. You're going to score at 1/2. And then that little booklet that's going to be the closure, it is 4 1/2 by 6 1/2. And we scored it at 3 1/4. So let's burnish all those score lines and then attach these flips and flaps. Well, I'm glad you caught us too. I'm kind of liking this later in the daytime. I don't know, it seems to be working right now. So maybe when I get back from all my, as my mother would say, or my parents would have said, gallivanting, I don't know, maybe we'll do more of them at this time of day. So let's do that small flap. Now I'm not going to miter the 1/2-inch tabs on this small flap because it doesn't go from the top of the page to the bottom of the page. But I am going to miter the 1/2-inch tab on this larger flap because it does go from the top to the bottom of the page. So let's miter. Keep watching to make sure that I stay within the camera. All right, so there's the one. That's the top to the bottom. Let's bring our book back in. Okay, remove this piece of paper. So the large flap is going on the left-hand side of the base page. And again, I'm going to dry fit just to make sure we're going to be happy. And we are. Okay, so let's get some adhesive on the back of it. Add the adhesive to the 1/2-inch tab. And add it to the booklet. And I'm going to round the corners of this flap once I have it in here. Okay. All right, so that's this one. And I'm going to round these corners now. I'm just going to one corner. And here we go on the second corner. Now, the little flap that is going on the right-hand side of the page, you can measure, you can eyeball it, whatever's going to work for you. I'm going to be happy with just an eyeballing it today. And again, adding my adhesive. And, you know, I'm probably going to measure this after I have this kind of tacked here, eh? You know that. You could have seen that coming. All right. So my little ruler. And for those of you who are there saying, that looks like a Tim Holtz ruler. It is. I broke it. That big, my 12-inch, one of my 12-inch rulers, and my dear husband was kind enough to cut it, to salvage it. All right, I'm happy with that. So let's burnish and let's miter. And like I said earlier, you don't want to add this small booklet until after you put pattern paper on this right flap. So you might want to write some kind of a note on here saying pattern paper first, then the flap. Or you might do what I'm going to do, which is I'm going to use my repositionable. I am rounding the corners on the little booklet. You know what it is, Caroline? You have no idea how many times people will say to me, "Where'd you get such a small 10 ounce ruler?" Well, when you drop them, sometimes they break. So what's going to happen? So let's just add the repositionable tape to the back of the booklet. And what I'm trying to do is I want it in about a half an inch from the side of the page. And I'm attempting to somewhat center it top to bottom. I think I want it down just a little bit. And see, this is the joy of the repositionable tape. You can pick it up and move it almost as many times as you want to. Something like that. Okay. And then it's going to go like so. Now we are going to add the magnets. Once I get the tool I need, just kind of curious as to, okay, perfect. So the first magnet I'm going to add it to the inside of the flap. So I'm, wait, just a second here. Inside or outside? Outside. I knew that wasn't right. As soon as I said it, I went, no, that's not right. Now, again, you're only going to want to position one of these magnets. And the other thing you need to keep in mind, that you may need to move this a couple of times to find its perfect home after you have the pattern paper on here, is the other thing you've got to keep reminding yourself is when I close this flap, I need to make sure that my magnet is in far enough on here that after I put pattern paper on it, I'm not going to be so close to the edge of this flap that it's going to bubble, or you're not going to be able to get your pattern paper down nicely. That's as far as I'm going to take this right now, because I don't know exactly where everything's going to line up after I've got my pattern paper on. So just make lots of notes. Like you could make a note that says booklet. If you've already got your magnet here, you're going to figure out this magnet has to go someplace else. I better think about this. So that's the front of page 2 done. And I like the interest of a flap on top of the pattern paper. It just gives, it's something easy, yet it looks like $1,000,000. Just drop it on the floor a couple times, Caroline. That's all I did. Well, I may have stepped on it too. That, if I'm being honest, I may have stepped on that one. All right, let's work on the back of page 2. And again, I'm going to say, let's clean up a little bit because, as always, I got a hot mess going on. Okay, so the back of page 2 is really, really simple. And yes, I should show you this too. I did put pattern paper on the inside of this booklet. So it's got pattern paper everywhere. So on the back of page 2, I just did this corner pocket. Easy, simple. They're probably, for a corner pocket, it's probably the easiest one, in my opinion, to line up your pattern paper to. Okay, so let's get out what we need. And we'll even talk about how do we put the pattern paper on the corner pocket. And what I'm going to use is I'll use a piece of this scratch paper, and we'll just kind of make a pretend pattern paper. All right, so the pocket itself, which is a corner pocket, you need a piece of cardstock that measures 4 by 4. Okay. And all you need to do is, when you have one 4-inch side in your scoring tool, score at 1/2. Then rotate it half a turn. So now your score, the score line you just did is at the top of your scoreboard. Score again at 1/2. And that gives you your fold lines for the pocket. So let me just set that there for a second. We'll come back to it. The booklet for this one measures 7 by 10, and I scored at 5. So let's fold this booklet first. Let's round the corners. So for those of you that follow me, I'm doing this project and then I'm going back east to visit my mom for a couple of weeks. Then when I come back from that, I pretty much turn around and I'm going to the retreat in Utah that Country Craft Creations is putting on at the beginning of May. I'm home like 9 days. I have a very good husband that is okay with me gallivanting. So there's your booklet. We rounded the corners, so we're going to set it aside for a second. Now let's fold on those 2 score lines on the pocket itself. And do the other one. All right. Now, we are going to do a little cutting on this pocket. I'm going to cut out this square, just like I do on all my other pockets. Get rid of the bulk. Hopefully I didn't. No, I didn't. I thought I may have cut through the corner. We're going to give this a really good burnish. Now, you're going to need a scoring tool. Or not a scoring tool, a trimmer. And I love my little trimmer. Hi, Stacy. I love my little trimmer because what it lets me do is it lets me do these cuts. So I'm also going to miter the 1/2-inch tab here at the top. I'm going to miter it here at the bottom too. So this is what you've got when you're looking at the back side of the pocket. Okay. Now, fold line, fold line. I'm taking my pocket, I'm putting it in my scoring tool. And like I say, this is what I like about this particular scoring tool or cutting tool is because it has a nice line here that I can follow. And I lay my pocket with the corner, top corner is right in the center of the cutting line. The bottom corner is right in the center of the cutting line. And I lay down my, I don't know what to call it, the thing that helps you cut. And there's a wire that runs on that. And once I'm happy that with my lineup, I cut straight through. It is the easiest pocket in the world. And you end up with the perfect corner pocket. You don't even have to worry about mitering because you've already done that. Okay? So that's it's the easiest corner pocket you're ever going to do. And it looks like $1,000,000. This you can save if you want to. It usually goes into my scrap pile. And sometimes if I need to back something, I've got it. And then eventually it ends up probably going to my recycling box. So this pocket is going right in the bottom right-hand corner. And it's just a little tuck spot. That's all I wanted it for. All right, so. Yes, yes. Oh, my cutting tool, my Fiskars. I guess it does, doesn't it? Now that you say that, Caroline. Yes, it does. I love my glow. I went to a crop in February and a crop in March, and I took it with me. I love it. Best tool ever. And if you want to know where to buy it, countrycraftcreations.com. All right, so we're just going to add some adhesive. Hi, Sandy. So far tonight, Sandy, it's a much better night than the other night. Okay, so we're lining it up with the bottom of the base page. And again, I'm doing like I always do. I'm only adhering the bottom because I'm going to want to add a little bit of tape so that when I put the booklet in this pocket, or when I put the pattern paper down, everything is going to slide over that 1/2 inch tab. Okay, now we're going to add the adhesive. Just going to move everything up. I'm adding the adhesive to the 1/2 inch tab that is on the left side of the pocket. And voila. There is that easy, easy peasy pocket in your booklet. Now, I know somebody's going to say, but how do I cut the pattern paper? Oh, those sound good. And I'm not into anything that's spicy, but that does sound good. Yes, we're having a chicken in my house tonight. All right. So I'm going to show you how to cut this pattern paper. It's not going to be pattern paper, but it'll get my point across. So I'm just going to take a piece of, like I call it, this scratch paper I have. And I'm going to cut this 4x4 here. No, I'm going to my big cutter. So just bear with me for a second. Just need to move things because I want 3 7/8. That is the only bad thing about this cutter, is when you get into between that 4 1/4 and 3 3 3/4 and 4, and even up to the 4 1/4, you're kind of in a no man's zone. So I like to make those cuts on one of my other cutters, just so I can absolutely see. So what I'm going to do with this is I'm going to cut. We know that pocket was started off as a 4x4 piece of paper. 4x4 piece of paper, yes. So the pocket itself is like 3 1/2. Just going to double check. Yes, the pocket is 3 1/2 by 3 1/2. So I want my pattern paper to be 3 3/8 by 3 3/8. Okay. So let me go over here. Yes. So there is my piece of paper that's 3 3/8 by 3 3/8. Bringing in my little cutter. And all we're going to do, we're going to do the same thing we did when we were making the cut. Yes, exactly. Well, I'm going to be interested in how you think, what you think of the Caterpillar Pro, because I've got my big dolly. I just need a cutter that's better at no man's land. And so far, every cutter has a spot that is a no man's land as far as I'm concerned. So I'm just lining up corner to corner, holding it in place and cutting through. And it doesn't matter which side you're going to use. Either side should be a perfect fit. So here it is. Pretend this is pattern paper. And you have the perfect piece of pattern paper for your corner pocket. That's why I love making these corner pockets. Because you know when you make the one where you go up, you have it straight up and straight out, and then you have the angle, it never, ever works for me. I'm always having to cover it up because it's not lined up properly. Yes, that's what I thought. The Pro doesn't fold. So that is my tip on corner pockets. If you struggle with corner pockets like I do this cut. Easy, and it looks like $1 million. And there you go. There's the back of page 2. So let's move on to the front of page 3. Let's get the project back in here. And again, simple. Oops, let me turn the page. All right, so get rid of this. So on this, it's just 2 flaps that go up. Again, no magnets on this page because this pocket that's on the front of this first flap kind of holds everything down. So that's quite helpful when doing that pocket. I'm just going to set the book there, get out what I need. Looks like a lot, but it really isn't. Oh, Caroline, did you? I think you're going to love it. I really think you're going to love the glow. I know I do. I don't know how I worked without it before. Can't wait to hear what you think of it. Okay, so let's do these flaps first, and then we'll do the pocket and the booklet that's going in that front flap. All right, so here we go. The larger flap is 5 3/4 by 8 1/4, and you score it 1/2. The smaller flap, it measures 4 3/4 by 7 1/2, and I'm scoring it at 1/2. Now the pocket that's going to go on the smaller flap, it measures 2 3/4 by 5 3/4, because remember, this was a 4 3/4 inch flap, so of course the pocket needs to be an inch bigger. You are going to, on the 2 3/4 side, score at 1/2. Rotate to the 5 3/4 side, score at 1/2. Rotate to the other side and score at 1/2. So the 5 3/4 is still across the top, and I'm scoring again at 1/2. And then our booklet that's going to go in the pocket, it measures 5 3/4 by 9, and you're going to score it 4 1/2. Okay, so those are the pieces. Let's do the folding. My tool. Okay, and we're going to round the corners on this booklet while we've got it here. Once I do a little straightening, just noticing it's not quite how I wanted it, so I'm going to fix it. And if you've got a pocket or a booklet that's not quite square, just take it and make it go where it needs to go, and then take your bone folder and give it a good burnish. No one will ever notice that it's just a little off on its score line. So round the corners on the booklet. I know, I feel that when I wait for something and then I decide to take the plunge, and then I go, I couldn't wait any longer. All right, let's fold on the flaps on their 1/2 inch tabs. And let's do this one. All right, and remember, like I say, if you could do me a favor, and when we're done the live, and this is finally on my YouTube channel at All Things Paper by Bonnie, if you could go and like my video, I would greatly appreciate that. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, if you do that, I'd appreciate that too. All right, so now the reason I rounded those corners is because it's not going to matter, because one pocket or one flap is just on top of the other flap. Folding on all my score lines of the pocket. Again, we are going to cut through miter, the top, the 1/2 inch tab at the top. Then we are going to cut straight through at the X, getting rid of all that bulk. And I think what we're going to do, when we are done this page, I think we're going to call this video, we're going to call this the end of part 2, because I'm halfway done and I'm just looking, that would be another hour. And I'm thinking it's getting late for people too. So I'm going to say what we would do. I don't know if Tammy is still out there, but I'm going to say that we would meet up again. Actually, we're over halfway there. Let's see what we got left here. No, I think we're going to have to do another day. I know I can't do tomorrow because I have a commitment tomorrow. Tomorrow is our night that we Zoom with all the lovely ladies. Yes, thanks, Caroline. So I'm going to say that we're going to meet up again on, I'm going to say Tuesday, but I need to just run that by Tammy and make sure there's nothing else happening on Tuesday of next week in our scrapbooking world. But you know me, I will post it. Thanks, Caroline. All right, so this is the larger flap. It's going on first. And again, I'm not mitering it because it doesn't go side to side. I actually like it when my flaps are a little shorter than my pages, because I always say to myself that gives the person can see that, oh, something has to be moved here. There's something underneath. Okay. And I'm just going to pick up the book for a second, because what I want to make sure is that it's not, and it's not. I didn't want it to be over. So remember, I'm working with, this is the right way for the book to be. And I was working with it upside down so that I could see what I was doing. I'll turn it sideways here. I always like to tell you guys the direction I've turned my book. So, because I remember when I was first starting, sometimes it would confuse me when somebody would turn their book around and not say that they had turned the book around. Now the second little flap is going on top of this one. And it's like a 1/2 inch. I believe it's a 1/2 inch. Yeah, it's a 1/2 inch smaller on both sides. Oh, and you know what? I rounded these. I wasn't supposed to on this one. Oh, well. We will round the pocket, and it'll be just fine. And you're saying, but then things are going to peek out. That's okay if things peek out. Aren't we? Yes. Most definitely. All right. And like I say, I am okay with what I'm about to do. I could cut another piece, but you know what? Here we go. So if it's going to bother you that your corners are going to be rounded on your pocket, don't round the flaps on this top pocket. But if it's not going to bother you, do what I'm about to do, which is, hopefully I don't break my little, so right now this little corner rounder is punching through 2 pieces of cardstock, and it handled it. Now, the only thing you're going to want to do, because we rounded the corners on the pocket, we're going to want to change our miter. So we want to get rid of this little corner here. So I'm just going to take my scissors and give it a better haircut. And then it's a nice, clean, rounded pocket. So repeat on this side. All right, so we are going to adhere this pocket to the front of the small flap. So let's get our paper back in. Yes, I have several tools that I had to have because other people. You know what, Carolyn? I've done this before. And when the first time I did it, I went, what did you just do? I'm okay having my little booklet hang out. I'll show you once I get it all assembled. So again, just like all my other pockets, I'm only adding the adhesive to the bottom. And like I said to you, if this is going to bother you, having rounded corners on a flap that has a pocket on it, don't do it. Just don't round the corner. But believe it or not, this is something that doesn't bug me. Again, the tape. And again on this side. And then we're going to fold it up like so. And there is our pocket. And there is the booklet that goes in our pocket. And it's not even going to peek out. And I like it rounded too, Sandy. That's why it doesn't bother me when I do it. This happens a lot in my world, can't you tell? So, okay, I think, do you want to push on with this tonight? Maybe another 40 minutes is what we need. I think we can do it, right? Yeah, let's just keep going because I've only got the back of page 3, front and back, and then the inside back cover. I think we're going to keep pushing on. Knees feeling good. I'll rest it after. All right, let's move to the back of page 3. Because I don't like it when these videos go on. And we'd only be back on for 45 minutes or so. And I'm sorry I hit the camera. That probably isn't going to make you feel very good. Yeah, that was me hitting the camera. Sorry. Let me straighten this out. Let me look at that one. There we go. Sorry about that. So that was the front of page 3 with the 2 flaps. Now let's go to the back. The biggest thing we've got to do is create these 2 flaps on the front of page 4. So this one is really simple because it's a side pocket with a couple of photo mats that go inside. So it's easy peasy. Like I say, the most difficult thing we've got left to do is this. Yeah, we got this. All right. And I believe, yes, there is a magnet involved in this one. So let's get 2 more magnets out. So we're just going to keep rolling. So if you're getting tired or if it's getting late in your world, I apologize. If you need to go, I totally get it. Yeah, only me. That's right, Stacy. I am my biggest critic when it comes to what I create. But I do believe we are. All right, so here are my magnets. I always say, it's like a vault. All right, so let's get our pieces. And let's do our scoring. All right, so we've got the back of page 3 starts with a pocket. And our pocket measures 3.5 by 9. And I did cut like a 16th off of this pocket, okay, on the 9-inch side. So I just pulled it back in the cutter and took a little slice of it off just to make sure it's going to fit on the page. And then we're going to score on the 3.5-inch side at 1/2. Rotate to the 9-inch side, score at 1/2. Turn it completely around, and then again score at 1/2. And these are the 2 photo mats that are going in that pocket. One measures 5 3/4 by 7 3/4. The smaller one measures 5 1/2 by 7 1/4. Okay, so those are our two mats. And then the flap that's going to hold everything closed and keep it all neat and tidy, it measures 5 1/2 by 7. And on the 5 1/2 inch side, we score at 1/2. So let's fold on those score lines. Let's burnish on those score lines. And let's get this in the book. So burnish. No burnishing required on those two mats. And then fold on the pocket. I should have called it the pocket album because I think I put a pocket almost on every page in this particular project. I like pockets. Pockets are simple and they look like they're $1,000,000. And miter the top. All right, so this pocket is a side pocket. And this pocket is on the outside edge of the page. So it's going to go like this on the back of page 3. Top to bottom. Let's get that piece of paper. Slide in. And then, like I say, I can put this project to bed and maybe, I doubt that I'll get anything else done. Not with how I know next week is going to roll. You never know, though. I could wake up and have this brilliant idea and go, oh, I have to do this before I go away, too. Okay, and we're going to add some adhesive to the long side of this pocket. I'm just going to do that because I know what's going to happen. So line up your pocket with the base page, making sure it's not hanging over. Remember, I did a little dry fit there just to make sure. Here we go. And then, oops, let's put a little tape on that pocket too. Thank you, Sandy. You know me, less is more. A friend of mine, she says, I'm the same kind of crafter. Less is more. Yeah, I got tons of lace and I hardly ever use it. And I go, why do you buy it? And I go, well, it's so pretty. But then I go, I'm never going to use it all. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll change. Okay, so there is the pocket in place. There we go. Now, the flap. Nothing wrong with less. That's right. I'm going to round the corners on my flap. And the flap is going on the right-hand side of the base page. I'm just making sure I'm going to keep it just away from the gusset so that when I want to turn this page, it's not going to interfere with that. I don't need a miter. The 1/2 inch tabs, whoops, because the pocket or the flap doesn't go from top to bottom. I'm centering this. And I'm just, the other thing I'm looking at is how does it look over on the the pocket. And I'm happy with that. Like the distance on either side. Just going to give it a gentle tap down, turn my page, nothing's catching. So let's give it a good burnish. And then for the magnets. Now, I am going to put the magnet about in the center. Actually, I'm going to put the magnet right there, it appears, because I can feel the pull from the magnet. I can feel the pull. Okay, right now I can feel the pull from the magnet. It's way back here on the very front of page 2. So I'm going to play with this a little bit, and because I don't want that. I don't want my two magnets attracting to each other like that, because see what's happening? It's going to make these two pages not sit nicely. So we're going to play around with this a little bit. So it may not go quite there. I may go back over here. No, that magnet has to be like that. All right, so let's just look at this. Just going to double check. You know what I did? I used smaller magnets, and I put one here and one here, because obviously that's what happened when I was working with it, when I was making the original. And then I went, yeah, we got to do something about that. You know what, Caroline? I have a ton of flowers too, and I very rarely pull them out. But when I do, I'm in love with it. Okay, let's get two sets of smaller magnets. Just want to feel this for a second. Yes, they were just small ones. I'm bringing the whole book in because I'm going, no, they aren't. They're big ones. No, they are small ones. Okay, small ones it is. I've got a ton of small ones. Let's use some of these guys up. Okay, so we're going to need 2 sets of the small magnets. So there's 1, 2, and where's my scissors? Keep it away from your iPad. Technology doesn't like magnets. And there's 1 and 2. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We are going to add 1 magnet. Yeah, as soon as I was putting that down, I went, I didn't have this problem the first time around. So I like to use my measurement of my thumb, a thumb in from the top and a thumb in from the side. And then what we want to do, yes. And we're going to repeat that down here on the bottom. Something like so. And then a little bit of tape. A little more tape. Add the magnets. Take the backing off of our magnets. And like I say, for something like this, these 2 little magnets, that'll work. And it saves you a set of big ones, and you've taken away that attraction thing that was happening. That is what I'm always looking at with my magnets. I will go back through, hello, Wendy, and just double check that none of my magnets are interfering with another magnet, because I don't like it when my pages are stuck together. So there we go. All right, so that is the back of page 3. And you can go back and round the corners after. So we don't need to do that. You've seen me round enough corners. Now we're to the front of page 4. And the front of page 4, it consists with, or it is, a couple of flaps going on. We have a left and right flap that actually have pockets on them with little booklets that go inside. So both of these pockets have these little booklets, like so. And then I had 2 flat top and bottom. Now there are magnets. There is a magnet here and a magnet there. Gotta find it. Yeah, here and here. And you sort of have to play with those a little bit as to where we want to place them. So we're going to make everything, then we'll add our magnets. I really like this element. I thought this was, yeah, I really liked it as it was coming together. Okay. So quite a few pieces we cut. And remember, some of this is by 2. Okay, so turn my instructions. So this is now page 4 front. We have 2 flaps. 2 flaps that measure 4 1/4 by 6 3/4. And on the 6 3/4 inch side, we scored at 1/2. So we have 2 of those. Okay. Then we have 2 smaller flaps that measure 4 by 4 1/2. And on the 4 1/2 inch side, we scored both of those at 1/2. Then we have the pockets that go on the front of these 4-inch flaps, and they measure 3 1/2 by 5. So on the 3 1/2 inch side, you're going to score at 1/2. And remember, you're doing that on 2 of them. So there's 2. Then you're going to rotate them to the 5-inch side, score at 1/2, rotate it completely around, score at 1/2. And then we have these cute little booklets that are going to go in there into those pockets, and they measure 3 3/4 by 7 1/2. And on the 7 1/2 inch side, you're going to score each one of them at 3 3/4, and that gives you 2 pockets. So let's burnish all of this. Yeah, I could have called it a pocket album. Didn't realize that I did all those pockets. Guess I was just in a pocket frame of mind. Okay. And we're going to do all our burnishing, then we'll do all of our mitering. And really, the only thing we have to miter are these 2 pockets. We're going to assemble some of it before it even goes in the book. So I'm going to put the pockets on their flaps, and then I'm going to put the flap with the pocket on it in the book. Okay, so there's that. Keep going. And 2. And last one. 1 flap. And 2 flaps. All right. So we are going to add these bigger flaps first. We're going to round the corners on these big flaps. So the 2 big flaps. So these are the ones that were, I think, 6 3/4 by 4 1/4. One of these is going at the top of the book. And I believe, yeah, I put it in by about 1/2 an inch. So one is going at the top. So let's add our adhesive. I don't need a miter, this 1/2 inch tab, because of its location. Just need to take it and put it in about 1/2 of an inch. 1/2 of an inch. Yeah, 1/2 of an inch. Okay, and burnish. Open it and burnish. And then the other one is going to be about here. And again, about 1/2 of an inch in from the edge, give or take. Need my paper. Like so. And And like so. Now, 1/2 inch, you should be able to see your hinge through the paper, and you can kind of line it up with the edge of that. You know what, Caroline? Good point, because now that you say that, our son, who's now a grown man, when he was a little boy, you had to be very careful when you did laundry, because every nut, every nail, every bolt, screw, rock ended up in that boy's pockets. Yep, he loved all of that stuff. Okay, so there's the top and the bottom flap. Now we're going to assemble these pockets that are going to go. So there's our booklets. You could, I'm not going to round the corners, but you guys can round those corners yourselves. Don't round the corners on these two flaps. And the reason I say that is because, wait, we can round these corners because the pocket's going to go along the 1/2 inch tab, that score line. This is where the pocket's going to adhere to this flap, so we can round them. I'm kind of buried under things. Okay, I was looking for my scissors and trying to explain what I needed to explain. So just like we've done with all those others, you guys will be pros at pockets. And let's do the second one. And get rid of my mess. And I should have mitered this first because I'm going to make more mess. There we go. Okay, let's burnish. And burnish again. All right, so flap 1 and flap 2. So these are the smaller flaps. These are the flaps that measured 4 by 4.5. Here is my 1/2 inch tab. I'm folding it under, and then I'm going to take my pocket, and I'm adhering my pocket right down to that fold line, and then adhering it the rest of the way onto the flap. Okay, so let's add some adhesive just to the bottom 1/2 inch tab on the pocket. And then we want to adhere this to the actual flap. Give it a good burnish. Open it up and burnish it again. I'm just going to look at that. Yep. And again, I'm going to get myself some tape. And I'm going to add my tape. So my iPad, I don't know why it does it, but it doesn't keep the comments up. So every once in a while, I have to go over and I have to scroll up or tap on it to be able to see the comments, or I miss things. So now I'm adding the adhesive to the sides of that pocket. And it's just easier to make the pocket while it's out of the album instead of doing it after it's in the book. Or at least I think it's easier. Okay, so there's one pocket. Let's rinse and repeat on the second one. So again, it's just doing a quick dry fit, just making sure. I'm not going to be happy with that. So here, let me show you what's making me not happy. My pocket appears to be just a little bit bigger than the base flap is. And so I'm double checking this measurement just to make sure. And so here's my issue. This flap here is not the correct size. So we're going to But we're going to try this first. So I'm going to try and just move over that score line by hand just a touch. If this works, we'll continue on. If it doesn't work, I'll cut a new one. Okay, I just want to burnish it. And then we just want to do this. I think I did it. All right, so I'll explain to you what I did. So because my pocket is just a hair shy of 4, it's not going to make a difference when it's in the book. You'd never know that it's a hair shy. Like it's like a 16th. But that meant I needed to adjust the side of my pocket. So all I did is I just folded it back with my hands, and then I burnished it. So probably before we had scoreboards, that's probably how we folded our paper, right? We just did it with our hands. Okay, now I'm happy, because I didn't like the fact that my pocket was sticking over just a little bit. It was bothering me. Like I've said many times before, there could be some OCD issues here. Okay, so again, line that up. Remember, we're putting the pocket on the flap. So there is the 1/2-inch tab. So we're putting the pocket on the flap, but the pocket is up against that 1/2-inch tab that will adhere it into the album. So again, open, give a nice burnish. Yeah, we'll be done here not too long, so I'm glad we kept going, because I have to build my stamina. Retreat is coming. All right. And add the adhesive to the other 1/2-inch tab. And then burnish and burnish. All right. And then I am going to round these before I even get them in the book. Just going to be easier. Don't have to turn the book around so much. All right. Booklet. Bring the book back in. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to open up those 2 flaps. Just keep them out of our way for the time being. So because we have our top and bottom flap on, it's a perfect thing to line up these 2 smaller flaps that are on the left and right side. So here's your 1/2-inch tab, and all I'm doing is I'm just maybe 1/8 of an inch up from that 1/2-inch tab, that this flap that's holding on this flap. And that way you don't have a lot of bulk in one area. That way when you're adding your pattern paper, it's nice and smooth, because you don't have all the bulky tabs over each other. So there's one. Okay. Now when we do the one that's going to go up here, I am going to turn my book upside down. So I'm telling you guys that now, just so I can work with it closest to me. And again, it's going to be something like that. Maybe down a little more. I'm going to add my adhesive. Don't need to miter these, because again, they're not going top to bottom. Now, the trick here is to make sure that it's far enough away from the edge of the page, not too far, like a 1/16. Tap it down gently, close everything up, and turn your page to make sure that it's not going to cause an issue when you do turn the page. Mine did not. I am happy. I'm not happy with that line that's there, but I'll fix that after. Just give it a good burnish a couple of times, and that'll get rid of the line. And look at that. Okay. So let's move our paper for a second. Flap, flap, and flap. Now you're saying, where do I put the magnets? Because that's going to be the next problem. Where do I add my magnets that it's going to hold down these two flaps? Let me bring in the book. So I put one magnet right about here, and I put the other magnet on the top of this flap. So for this particular mechanism, my magnet is here and here. So one magnet on the back of this flap, the other magnet on the front of this flap. Same over here. One magnet here on the back of this flap, and then I put the magnet on the top of this flap. Because if I tried to put it through all the layers, like if you think about that, that's going to be 3 layers here and 3 layers here, plus this, so 4 layers altogether. It would never have adhered. So that's how I did it, to make those flaps all stay in the right spot. So that's what we're going to do again. So we're going to use 2 big sets. So there's one, because I had taken that one out already. And then here comes the second set. And then we only have the back of this and the back inside, and we can call this good. It is Sandy, or who? Actually, Caroline, was that you? Yes, Caroline, it is. You've seen me at retreats. I'm like the Energizer Bunny. If you ever get an opportunity to get to one of Country Craft Creations in-person retreats, you got to do it. It is the best fun ever. And I mean that. It is the best time ever. Okay, so this is how I want them to go. So, one set of magnets. We are going to work by putting it on the back of this pocket, and I'm sort of centering it like so. And then we're going to do this. And I used my thumb. It was a very scientific measurement that I did there, or mathematical measurement there. Okay, and now we're going to take the backing off of this other magnet. And then I just like to slide it up a little bit to get my magnet separated. The other reason I like to put the tape on is it does help, before you get pattern paper on, it does help with the, how do I say, lifting your page without pulling the magnet off of the pattern page, or off of the cardstock. Okay, so now we want to do this one. Now, I believe, just checking something out. Okay, so that is what you did. I am going to center this magnet like so. And then I'm going to cheat. I'm going to open this up. And you're going to say, but it's going to be going through another layer. Yes, it is. But it'll also keep this flap down. So slide, add your tape. And then, yeah, so done and done. So if you notice, I put one magnet here. I don't want 2 magnets on one flap, because that will run the risk of maybe tearing this flap. So I put the other magnet, and then it really doesn't matter which way you end up with them when you decorate, but I do prefer it like that. So magnet and magnet, and there is your pockets and your flaps. Now you can round the corners on your booklets. I may have to trim one of my booklets down a little bit because of the fact that I had to do a slight adjustment on my pocket. Let me just see here. Yeah, I do. I'm going to just take a hair off of this booklet. So in my big cutter, and let's see if that was enough. So my big cutter will let me cut through 2 layers of material at a time. Actually, let me cut through more than that. So it's just a hair, like a 16th. Okay, so let's try this again. Might need a little bit more of a shave, but that'll be good enough for right now. You will measure correctly, so you won't have to shave yours down. There we go. There's our booklets in our pockets. And we can go to the back of page 4. Speeding right along. All right. So let me close this up. So the back of page 4 has a little pocket on the front with a flip-up booklet. And then it has 2 bigger flaps and then another pocket. I was on a roll with pockets. And then that's how it all goes together. So there's no magnets on this page because you kind of have a heavy use of magnets on this page. So that's the point of having this pocket on the front of the bigger pocket. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. I'll give you those measurements. Okay, so it's all of this. See? And all my bits and pieces. All right, so the back of page 4 has these 2 large flaps, or the larger flaps that are at the top of the page. So there's 2 of those. Just lay it here. And they measure 5 7/8 by 6. And on the 6-inch side, you are going to score each of these flaps at 1/2. So you have 2. So 2 at 5 7/8 by 6. And then your big pocket that goes on the bottom of the base page, it measures 3 1/4 by 7. And you can take a 1/16 of an inch off, or just a hair off of this before you score it. Always do that before you score, because you still want to have your right score line. Does that make sense? So on the 3 1/4 inch side, you are going to score at 1/2. You're going to rotate your pocket. Now this is a pocket that now measures 7 less a 1/16. You are going to score at 1/2. Then you're going to rotate your pocket completely around and score at 1/2. Never, never go, well, I know I'm going to score my pocket at 1/2, and it's a 7-inch pocket, so I'll just go over here at 6 1/2. If you shave that little bit off, always, that's why I just always rotate. It's just easier, safer, better. Okay, those are your 2. So, and you've got 2. I've got a smaller pocket here too. Let's do the smaller one, and then we'll do the booklets. So the small pocket that's going on this bigger pocket, it measures 2 1/2 by 4 1/4. On the 2 1/2 inch side, you are scoring at 1/2. You're rotating to the 4 1/4 side, you are scoring at 1/2. Then flip it completely around and score at 1/2. Okay, yes, we will see. I'll probably see you tomorrow night. Have a good night there, Caroline. And then the booklets are the pocket photo mats. We've got one at 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. We've got one at 4 1/4 by 6 1/2. No, 6 3/4. And then we've got a small booklet that measures 3 by 8. And on the 8-inch side, you are going to score at 4. Okay, let's get all this out of the way. Let's do our burnishing. You can round the booklet and the photo mats. That's totally your call. You can round the flaps that are going at the top of the base page. I probably won't round them just to speed it up just a touch. We'll see. We'll see what happens when we get there. I'm looking at the time. We're almost at 2 hours. So we'll be done. We'll be done in the next 10 minutes. Promise. And burnish. And burnish. Now, I am going to attach these 2 booklets together. It's just easier to do it when it's not in the book. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to put my adhesive on the 1/2-inch tab of one of the flaps, one of those big flaps that go at the top of the page. I believe that is the 5 7/8 by 6-inch flaps. It's just easier to do this. And what I'm really watching for is to make sure that they're straight, making sure that they're not hanging over any place. I am going to round these because they'll be easier to round now than they will be to round after. Okay, just making sure. Burnish. And then we are going to round. And round. And round. Bring the book back in. And these flaps, these 2 flaps, you're just adhere together. You're going to put them at the top of the page. I'm going to turn my book upside down so I have it closest to me. Closest to me. And then I am just centering side to side. And basically what you're doing, no, actually what I did is I kind of had it all over to the right. Like, no, turn the book back around. These 2 flaps, I am putting them right over to the left-hand side of the page. Why? I don't want them to catch as we turn the pages in the book. So let's take this back upside down. Oh no, Alice, don't freeze. I'm not at my end. So hopefully everything looks good here. Okay, so now I'm going to add my adhesive to the back of the 1/2-inch tab. And then I am putting it right over to the edge of the page. I'll show you this again once I get it in the book. Turn it back around. Burnish it well. So that's your pages, or your 2 flaps. So the 2 flaps, the one on top of each other. Here they are. Okay. Now we're going to put the pocket that goes at the bottom of the page in the booklet. Let's just move the booklet for a second. And we're going to cut right through the X like we've done on all the other pockets. Miter the top of the pocket. Well, I'm impressed that we're getting this done in 2 sessions. Okay, bring our book back in. I'm going to lift these 2 flaps up so they're out of my way. I'm going to dry fit my pocket. I'm going to be happy. Add the adhesive to the 1/2-inch tab that goes along the bottom of the pocket. add it to my book. And remember, I did 5/8 of an inch gussets, so I find that helps too with the bulk of the pockets and the pages and the magnets and everything else we put into our projects. Burnish and add some tape. There we go. And then we want to add, just going to do something here just because I didn't. Yep, the page will turn. Put those up, get them out of my way. And let's do the other side of the pocket. Lift up, fold down, and burnish. Burnish. All right, now we have the two smaller photo mats that are going in the pocket. One is just a little shorter than the other one. I always like my photo mats to kind of stick out a little bit. So there's the photo mats in there, photo mats in the bigger pocket. Now let's create this smaller pocket. Again, cut through the X. Now the only thing here is we need to put the pattern paper on the pocket before we adhere. So I will be putting it on this pocket for the time being, just with some repositionable tape. And just giving you the cues as to what we want this to do. We want to have our smaller pocket. I put my smaller pocket to the left-hand side of my bigger pocket. So I had it something like this. And I did it about 1/4 of an inch in and 1/4 of an inch up. Okay. I have my big flaps laying down because I need to make sure that the booklet is what's going to hold everything shut. So I've got to be able to put my booklet into my pocket. So no permanent adhesive right now, just some, because you want to put pattern paper on first, right? And since I haven't decided what the pattern paper is going to be, so about 1/4 of an inch in, something like that. And then my booklet, and I am going to round these corners because they'll catch if I don't, especially when I haven't adhered the pocket permanently. So, and you have a couple of things you can do. You can just put one flap so that it sticks out. I prefer to put both, like put it in just like a booklet, and that's what holds your pocket shut. So there's a way to have a closure, but there's no magnets involved. There's no seam binding involved. Oh, good, Alice. So it didn't stop on my end, so you'll be able to go back and watch. So there's the back of page 4, a pocket without any magnets. So let's now move on to the inside of the back cover. And remember, you're going to lay down your pattern paper, then you're going to add the pocket. So you might want to put a little note that says, add pattern paper. You could do that there. You could do that here, add pattern paper. Just to remind yourself, same over here, add PP. I don't know what that means. Okay, so let's move to the inside back cover. And then we can call this one done. Now we have some photo mats. So let's talk about the flaps first. And the flaps on this page, let me bring the book in. I always like to refer to the book as we're constructing. So the back of the inside back cover has one flap and it has 2 flaps. Okay, and there's a pocket on the front of the first flap. So again, you're going to want to Wait to put this pocket on until you've got your pattern paper. Then put the pocket down permanently and you'll be good. All right, so let's do the measurements for what we cut. So let's do the two flaps first. Flap 1, which is the larger flap, measures 6 3/4 by 8 1/2. And on the 6 3/4 inch side, we scored at 1/2. That's one flap. The second flap, the one that goes on top, it measures 6 1/4 by 7 1/2. And on the 6 1/4 inch side, we score at 1/2. Now, the pocket that's going to go on the top of the smaller flap, it measures 3 by 5 3/4. On the 3-inch side, score at 1/2. Rotate to the 5 3/4 side, score at 1/2. Rotate the other side again, so you're on 5 3/4, score at 1/2. The mats are, one is 4 1/4 by 5 3/4. Second mat is 3 3/4 by 5 1/4. Smallest mat is 3 1/4, should be, by 4 3/4. Okay, so mats, flap, pocket. So let's start with the pocket. So cut through the X and cut through the other X. Miter the top of the pocket. Pocket's ready to go in our project. Now, let's burnish it again. There's one. This is the smaller flap. So we're just going to round the corners. Now, this is the larger flap, and it goes from the top of the page to the bottom of the page. I am not going to round the corners on this flap until I have it in my book, but I am going to miter my 1/2-inch tabs. So miter. And bring the book back in. Do a quick dry fit. So these flaps are on the right-hand side of the inside back cover. And what I'm dry fitting for is to make sure that I am not over the page. I'm just going to go, just slice a little hair off of this because it's just hanging over just by less than a 1/16. And we just gave it a little haircut there. Okay, just do another quick dry fit. Now I'm happy. Add adhesive. There is no magnets holding these two flaps down because the weight of them. And that is the other thing. When you put a pocket on the top of a flap, it adds some weight to the flap. And I often find then you don't need to do a magnet. Just what I'm looking for is to make sure I'm not over the edge of the album. There's one. Burnish. Now I can round the corners. Sorry, it's not in the shot. There we go. Now we're going to put the second flap on, and we center it top to bottom because I cut it so that it's a 1/2 inch smaller than the first flap, so that you get to just peeks out a little bit. Add your adhesive. We don't need a miter, these 1/2-inch tabs, because they don't go from the top of the page to the bottom of the page. And then centering. If you need to use a ruler, this is the time. Just tap it down. Again, like I've said many times before, tap it down, but make sure it's at least holding in place. Not like what I just did there. And just going to move it just a little bit. I played with it too much, so we're going to add some more adhesive. Waited too long. That happens. I wasn't happy with the positioning, so okay, and I'm just going to take my little ruler, 1/2 and a 1/2. I'm going to move it down just a little bit for some reason. There we go. All right, so there is our second flap. Now remember I said before we put the pocket on, we are going to add our pattern paper. And I'm just going to put add pattern paper. And then this little booklet, after you add the pattern paper, is going to go something like this. So for right now, this is the other reason I like my repositionable tape. So when I'm doing things like this, I can still put it in my book, but I can come back and lift it up and do what else I want to do. And again, I kept it about 1/2 inch from the bottom and 1/2 inch from the side, maybe a little less than that. And then you can round the corners on these photo mats, and they would go in this pocket. And voila, there you are, one completed big boy album. So there we are, all done except for decorating. And there is our finished product or project. Look. So, and last page. So I hope you enjoyed this project. I enjoyed making it. I'm going to enjoy decorating this one too. And I guess what I'll say to you is I probably won't see you in April at all, but I will be back with more lives in May. It's just the way the cookie's crumbling right now. Sorry I'm being so sporadic, but as I've always said, family comes first, and I need to go see my mom. So that's what I'm going to do. Thanks, Sandy. You're always so encouraging. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for sticking with me. Good night. Thank you, Sue. I'm going to, and I'm sure I'll see you guys around. I'll be chatting in the Facebook group in Scrapbookers while I'm gone, I'm sure. So thank you. Have a great night, and we'll see you on my next live. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.